Welcome to the podcast. Episode 106 is a collaboration with Andrew Lorenzo and Zach Domagalski, I hope I said that right, from Breaking the Barrier podcast. We both hit 100 episodes recently, so thought we would get together and discuss our podcast journeys. This is just a general chat, and I really hope you enjoy it. If you do enjoy this episode, as always, please go on over to Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you listen on to rate, review and subscribe. It really helps to grow the audience and thus the show. Thanks so much for your ongoing support. Are injuries or niggles ruining your enjoyment of running and hindering your performance? Get on top of these and see the specialists at Health and High Performance. Utilising the latest in technology and with an absolute wealth of experience, the team at Health and High Performance can assist you with all your running, injury and performance needs. So, to get back to enjoying your running and thus achieving the results you are capable of, head to healthhp.com.au/run, or you can find them easily on Instagram, Health High Performance. Health and High Performance are located in Mont Albert, Melbourne, but are also available for telehealth appointments not only Australia-wide but around the world. So contact them on their website to find out more if this is of interest to you. Wild Earth Australia are the online store to help you make the most of the outdoors with top quality gear at great prices. Peak Endurance podcast listeners can use the discount code Peak Endurance, which is all capitals, to get 10% off at checkout. Head on over to wildearth.com.au to get everything you need for your next adventures in the great outdoors. And if you are looking to challenge your limits, you need to have structured, individualised training to help you get there. If you want to achieve your best, email me, Isabel, at peakendurancecoaching.com.au to get a program started. And I hope you enjoy this collaboration episode. It was fun making it. Record.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this first joint episode of the Breaking the Barrier and Peak Endurance podcast. I'm Andrew.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Isabel.
Welcome all. So we all decided to get together because we've both sort of hit the 100th episode milestone at relatively the same time. And Izzy had the idea a month or however long it was ago.
Feels like forever.
Yeah, whenever. Who knows what time is during these hectic days? To maybe get together and talk a little bit about what we've done, what we've accomplished, what we've seen.
What we've learned is that even after all this time of doing podcasts, it still takes us half an hour to get organised and get a Zoom working and figure out where the record button is, which is always fun.
Yeah, this is great.
Shush, we're not meant to tell people that.
We should. I wish we were recording all that. It would have been great behind the scenes. If we ever have a Patreon, that we chock full of stuff.
Do you do that on Patreon?
I think they just put kind of random stuff like that.
No, but you yourself, do you?
Oh, no.
No,
I have an Etsy shop for my Melbourne Superman stuff, but that's it.
Our 5 listeners don't want to pay for extra content. Congratulations on 100 episodes for you, Izzy. Is that what you thought you'd be doing when you started the podcast?
Isn't it funny? Because I believe, supposedly the record is if you can get past 12 episodes. 12 episodes seems to be the people give up or they keep going. And I remember being really excited about getting over 12. And I don't know. I never really thought any further than each podcast, but I'm pretty stoked to have gotten to 100. How about you guys?
Yeah, I must admit when I first started Breaking the Barrier, I didn't know what it would be like. I mean, obviously when I first started it was all about that road to a specific marathon time, which of course due to injury, due to different goals, that's sort of changed and everything. So I didn't know. I think once maybe episode 10, I was like, all right, we're in double digits now. Might as well just kind of keep going.
You got through the first 12 episodes, though, in 5 weeks. So I think we pretty quickly got past that psychological barrier.
Yeah. I mean, I was putting out, because back, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little bit, back in the day when things were normal, it was a lot easier to come up with content.
Yeah.
And so it was just
I
easier.
agree.
Yeah. Races were happening, things were happening, all that good stuff. But yeah, and then sort of there was a time in there where I sort of lost my way for a little bit. And that's sort of when Zach joined up, and that was around episode 60, 65.
Yeah, and then that sort of churned it around because it came less about, I think, just your journey, because that was probably you dealing with the fact that your injuries weren't going to let you get to that 240.
Yeah.
And then we kind of had this renewed thing where we're like, well, let's talk about a whole bunch of other stuff that was going on. And I decided to get into stupid ultras at that point, which is always amusing to Andrew to hear about. And then we did go off on a very interesting Mandalorian Star Wars detour for about 3 months, which I'm sure was great fun to every person that wanted to hear us talk about fitness and running.
Every one person?
Yes. But you've remained pretty consistent, haven't you? Yours seems to be the interview type format. Have you done, how many of the 100 episodes have you done that have been solo, if any?
I started off originally doing every second one solo. I was putting out one podcast a week because I just didn't know enough people to interview. And then I just went, I'll stuff it. I'm just going to start. I went through my bookshelf and pretty much emailed all the authors of the books that I'd read about running. And, 50% said yes. So I interviewed them.
Yeah.
And then, so that just kind of got the ball rolling. And then once you've done a few of those, people are more inclined to say yes as well. And then I've also found there's just been a greater interest really from listeners in like local athletes.
Yeah. People more relatable to a local audience. You can all sort of see what's happening in the American athletic fields, but someone who's doing it more locally and makes it a little bit more relevant for you. That's a good tip.
Yeah, that's right. Which for me, I love personally following mainly the British and the European races and a little bit of the American. Whereas I just find a lot of Australians not so much, which is fine. It's just not what I expected. And I guess I'm no market research person, but I just figured it out by looking at my numbers that people prefer to listen to local athletes. And to be honest, I really enjoy interviewing local athletes, and we've got some brilliant local athletes, and it's great to bring them into focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've had a couple of guests that were like higher profile, and that's great. But you're right, when you can, because without this sounding the wrong way, when the everyday person listens to that, it's like, that's awesome, but like, how can I relate to that?
Yes,
like,
exactly.
So when you have somebody just relate to that, they can do that.
Yeah. There was, I think, the best review Andrew and I ever got was, these two very average runners give us advice that's very relatable. So
I remember that.
Very average. Oh my word.
Thank you. But they're not wrong. These two average runners tell us what they think we should know, and
they're sometimes funny. I think that's also what they said. And we're like, well, thank you.
We'll take it.
But that's what I think. What people are trying to get at there is once again, like with interviewing athletes, local athletes, is they feel they can relate to you, and therefore they're more inclined to listen because it's I think it's sometimes harder to listen to people who, like you say, they seem to know everything and are able to do everything and are perfect. And it's like, well, I'm never going to be like that. So I guess, it's better not to have perfection.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I love listening to an episode or an interview with somebody like, Amelia Boone or, Eliud Kipchoge, but it's like, what does he do that I can do?
Yeah,
exactly.
Breathe.
Yeah, right. Even that's probably superhuman.
Yeah, probably.
So, what if? Go ahead, Zach. Sorry, you were gonna.
No.
Oh, I was just gonna say. So, I mean, in terms of keeping up during, we want to get into COVID a little bit. What did you find it was kind of hard to get? Not so much motivated, because I know that we all kept going, I'm pretty sure, during COVID in terms of running and fitness. But I mean, in terms of finding stuff to talk about, we kind of touched on that before.
I find that there was certainly of the British athletes, quite a few doing FKT.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
What's an FKT? I think I know what FKT is, but explain it to me.
Fastest known time.
Right.
And you see, in the UK, they have what's called rounds, which are designated courses, which of course you can sort of navigate yourself to find the fastest route and whatnot. But and so I'm really interested. I've always been really interested in FKTs, and so for me that was really good. I also find authors really wanted to come on podcasts and talk because they couldn't go around doing talks elsewhere to sell their books. So I actually find for myself because I wasn't focusing on races per se, that it was a busy time.
Did you think the last time we caught up was episode 73 when we spoke about on the Breaking the Barrier podcast where we spoke about the beer mile we did, and we had some jokes about Corona and everything that was happening there.
Yeah,
did you ever think we were going to end up where we are now?
No. I rewatched our beer mile video on YouTube last night, and I remember kind of at the first, I said, we're doing Corona. This is kind of funny now. It might not be funny tomorrow. And I watched that last night. I was kind of cringing. I was like, definitely not funny.
Not funny.
It did not age well. No.
Definitely.
Oh, come on. It was kind of funny.
It was kind of funny. It was a little bit funny. I mean, that whole thing, let's talk about that for a second. That was just,
well,
wow.
That was, I mean, I was pretty injured at the time, so I couldn't really run pretty much at all. And yeah, so I mean, but it was just fun to do something different and silly, like we all take running so seriously. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I tend to fairly seriously. So it's nice to sometimes just do something just a bit silly, just for the sake of having fun.
Yeah. I remember when we did that, we were like, oh, the next thing we'll do is we'll get together at the Cinco de Mayo, which is actually like yesterday, but a year later. And we never got a chance to do that. Yeah.
I know. I was going to say we were going to do something Mexican themed. I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But we still have to do something else. We will have to.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. I don't know if it's another beer mile.
How did your training go over the lockdown, Leslie? Like, how did you handle it? Because you said you were injured when we did that run. How are you feeling?
Yeah. I mean, it was, it wasn't injury. It was nerve damage. So it's kind of like it's never going to go away, this injury. So it's just relearning to run, basically. Yeah. I mean, because it was actually kind of good, as in there were no races, because I just had to focus on doing lots of base miles just to try to learn how to push off on that foot again. So it actually, in that regard, wasn't too terrible for me, there being no racing. The 1 hour thing.
Yeah.
A bit of a crock. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
how about you guys? How did you cope running wise?
Well, I mean, lots of virtual runs. Like I kind of
got into them.
I pooed them at the start, and
I pooed them the whole time.
I pooed them at the start, and then I got into a couple. Like I did one which was a Sydney to Melbourne. So a Sydney to Melbourne virtual ultra. You had 100 days to do it, and so I tried to get that one done in I did it in 73 days in the end, and that was good. Like that.
Part of that was during the 1 hour a day.
Yeah. Well, there was I think I had 44 days in a row of running an hour a day, 11 kilometers a day. I think that was like my streak I had all through that lockdown. And then the second that they changed it and said you could go more than an hour, I didn't run. Because the second that I was able to, I was like, nah, I don't want to do it. So yeah.
Oh wow, isn't that funny?
There you go. Give them what they want, and then they don't want it.
We really struggled for content. Like we found ourselves after a while just talking about the same thing again and again and again.
Yeah,
because
we were just kind of talking about ourselves. And I'm like, I was running twice a day. I was strength training. But how often can you talk about that? Like literally we started the same. I would start our episodes. What are you up to? Well, I'm still going on with my running and my aesthetics. Like literally the same thing. And we were talking about what's going on in the world and COVID and everything. And, obviously the races that were happening, like the London Marathon, or the accomplishments that were happening, like the dude that ran like a marathon in his apartment, which was crazy. I think we kind of started just focusing on what people were doing to quote and unquote go above and beyond during a time when they really couldn't. And I did learn that it is hard to find a lot of that stuff. Like, of course it's in the news, it's there, but you really got to dig for it, because you type in accomplishments during COVID, and I mean, there's not a lot of stuff that comes up that's relevant.
I recall our plan for last year. We were planning to do a lot of stuff like talking to run directors and going out and doing sounds from a race and kind of tapping into what you were saying before, like that local angle of, if you're in Victoria, you go here and do this and do that. And that was kind of our big plan. And then we'd even spoken to a couple of run directors and said, hey, you've got an event coming up in a couple of months' time. We'd love to talk to you about it. And then that whole thing went away.
Yeah.
And so we kind of lost like 3 or 4 really good episodes / guests. We weren't smart enough to do the bookshelf idea. Although my bookshelf would be all comic book stuff and Andrew's would be all like, whatever he's got back there. I think those books are fake actually behind him.
Secret societies. Yeah, it goes into a hidden vault behind my behind my wall.
No, I'm just a running book geek, so I just,
I only have one running book, I think.
Really?
Oh, no, I've got 2. I've got Born to Run and I've got Running Rewired, which is more of a...
I've got Running Rewired.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
Just got chock full of good exercises. I think that's it. I've got about 1,000 runners magazines, though. Runner magazine.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, but you see, you can even use running magazines as ideas because you can look at their articles and then talk about ideas from that, or contact the authors of the articles. Like there is just, to me, so many different ways of finding content.
Well, we found content and we spoke about it, but eventually after a while I was like, I'm just reading out articles that people could go read themselves. Again, I didn't have the bright idea of, hey, why don't we actually reach out to the author and ask for, which is so funny because I listen to so many podcasts where people talk about that. They're like, oh, hey, you wrote a really great article, let's talk about it. And I love them because they always reveal stuff that didn't make the article, which is almost more interesting than that. So yeah, maybe we should think about doing that.
And it is interesting because it's like you listen to those podcasts and you're like, oh, that's so cool that they got that person, but really all they did was ask. I mean,
yes, and that's all I did was ask. Because what's the worst that can happen? Someone says no.
Say no. Okay.
I can live with that.
It's a numbers game. Just keep asking.
It is a number, and that's why I just went through the whole bookshelf.
Exactly.
Did you ever lose the faith? Like, did you ever think, oh, this is too hard? No.
It gave me something to do during lockdown when I had no job. And I live in a little apartment, which is pretty, boring to sit in all day. It gave me something else to focus on, something to do. I would have really struggled without having the podcast to do.
Did you get anything from listeners saying that it was helping them too?
No, not specifically, no.
So it wasn't like the feedback from the listeners was kind of irrelevant for you with this one. You were sort of doing it to keep yourself motivated and going.
I mean, I was doing it because I thought people would want to hear it and hopefully would be interested. I wasn't doing it just for me, because I would have done the podcast regardless, COVID or no COVID, but it certainly did help me. It certainly did.
And did you notice anything with your listenership? Like, did it go up? Did it go down? Did it stay normal or flat? You don't look at those things?
It's just been a steady growth the whole time. Ooh. So I don't know whether COVID would have affected that.
What do ours look like, Andrew? Do we have steady growth? Or
yeah, I mean, we kind of plateaued for a little while, to be expected, because we weren't. There was a couple months where we didn't put anything out, but now that we're kind of back into it, it's kind of going up again, up. Like the first episode that we put out, episode 100, within the first 24 hours, I think it already had a couple hundred downloads, and that's pretty cool. I can live with that. And it just grows from there. I think I think at the time that we were really just popping out episodes with nothing really much to talk about, it was just kind of plateaued, but we weren't really pushing it either. Like we were just, we were kind of talking because, again, it gave us something to do. It gave us something to talk about, like Mandalorian. That has nothing to do with running. Well,
no. We tried to squeeze a fitness angle in every episode. Yeah. How did you promote your podcast, Izzy? Like, I see you often on like Facebook and stuff like that. And there's people sharing your podcast. But what do you do yourself?
I just put a post out about it, and I put it on a couple of running groups, but I don't like to overdo that because I don't want them to go, oh, here comes bloody Isabel posting on our group again with her podcast. So, I mean, I just put it on my socials. That's it. Like, I don't really do much at all. I don't know what else I should do. Yeah,
that's kind of always been.
What do you do?
That's kind of always what I had been doing. Like, put it on my personal page, put it on the podcast page. Like right now, I use the Melbourne Superman page to put out stories about it or posts about it. But I think there's a couple of Australian podcast groups on Facebook that it's more of kind of networking and stuff. But I think all of them one day a week are like
Yeah, they ask you to share, but I don't know. What's the point in sharing it on there? Like,
Yeah, like nobody.
We all listen to each other's podcasts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I don't. I did that for a while, but I was like, I'm not
yeah,
seeing any return from this, and
Yeah,
it
no,
just
I
got
refuse
can't
to listen
imagine
to
that
Andrew's
that
other
would.
podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So what the hell? So,
Did you know Andrew's got a second podcast?
Oh, do you? What's that?
it's called the Kryptonian Chronicles. It's a pop culture podcast. Myself and another Superman cosplayer. We did a live Q&A on Instagram once, and it went really well. And we were like, that was really fun. Let's make a podcast. Okay.
As you do.
As you do.
Well, I mean, I'm on another podcast as well, the Coaching Round Table.
That's
so,
what it was. That's
Yeah,
that's-
so I do the two podcasts.
Wait, is that one a podcast or is it just a Facebook thing? It is a podcast, that one?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a Facebook page, but it is a podcast. Yep.
Oh, right. Okay, I gotta check because I've seen some of the stuff. Aren't they videos? Or have you put some of those on your podcast, like the Peak Endurance?
Sometimes I promote it on mine as well,
maybe that's
when
why
I
then.
remember.
Yeah, right.
But because it's to do with running as well. But yeah, I'm on that one as well.
Right on.
And we try to do that once a week. So I'm doing 2 podcasts a week,
Yeah.
putting them out. And as I guess you don't do interviews generally, but I interview people. So I might do 2-3 interviews a week. Also to bank them up so that when I do have a week off or whatever, I can have a week off. But yeah, it's a lot of work, isn't it? Doing a podcast.
I think that's because when I first started this thing, I thought it was just going to be me getting on and just talking, and it can be like absolutely like if you're somebody who wants to start a podcast, that's where it's got to start anyway, and you can absolutely do that forever. And some people that just works, but if you want it to be something sort of more in depth, it's a tough gig. It's like even like Izzy, I know you don't necessarily edit your podcasts, but even just the simple act of putting a podcast on the platform that you got to get it out, uploading it, doing this, doing that, even that can take however long it takes.
Well, even though you've recorded that intro for me, I still do another little intro and I do an outro, and then you've got to put it all together with a little bit of music.
Time.
So yeah, and then I also record a visual of my intro because I put all my podcasts onto YouTube as well, and I put that out, and then I try to send them out to people, on the socials. It's a lot of work, and then of course, organizing interviews, trying to marry up times with people who are overseas, and getting up at weird times of the morning to record with people, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it takes time, and it's I've got to think up questions and whatnot. Just like you guys have to plan. There's planning involved. You don't just rock up and hope for the best. Like we would.
Well, he does
Sometimes.
Well, we did that a bit tonight, but in general, if I feel like if I'm interviewing an expert in the field or something, I've got to do a bit of bloody research and that sort of stuff, and so I don't look like a total numpty. So there is a lot of work involved and that's why part of the reason I don't edit is because if I edited it as well, this would become an unpaid full-time job instead of an unpaid part-time job.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, in any given episode, and I'm talking episodes that I don't necessarily edit, I'm each episode 4 to 6 hours easy.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's not edited.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, it's a time-consuming exercise, and I mean, but in saying that, we obviously all enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
we wouldn't do it if we didn't. Yeah.
Exactly, especially because it is unpaid. Sure, you get the occasional
free Spartan entry,
or
no, see, I haven't gotten any free entries for anything from it.
Because there was a while back you were looking at getting a sponsorship. Did you end up?
Well, I didn't. I know because I asked you for some ideas, and then I kind of sent a few out and never heard anything, so I just gave up.
Yeah, I was really lucky with Generation UCAN. Just because I hit them at a time because they're bigger in the States, and I hit them at a time with their Australian brand that they were just starting to grow.
Okay.
So they were just like, we'll take anything we can get. And with Spartan, again, I've hit them at a time where they're trying to not that I've hit them. I've just reached out to them.
Yeah.
At a time where they're trying to build brand awareness again, in a time when people are afraid to race.
Yeah. And that's a good point, isn't it? Yeah. So Pete, you reckon people are afraid to race?
I think there are some people that would be like, they're either afraid or they're I think that there are multiple reasons why they might be afraid to race. A, that they've sat home during COVID and lost what fitness they think they had. So they're not going to feel comfortable or confident.
Yeah.
B, the straightforward, I'm afraid because I don't want to catch COVID.
Yeah.
C, they're afraid because they don't know what to expect. And the last time they did this thing, it was really a great thing. And they're afraid that it's going to change so much that it's just not going to be the same.
Yeah, because of all the COVID rules and whatnot and that sort of stuff.
Have you done any events recently to sort of, because I did one on the weekend. That was my first or bigger race. I'd done a trails event, but trails events tend to be naturally pretty relaxed because they're much smaller groups. And then I did an event on the weekend, and they had the starting chute divided into lanes with markings every 1.5 meters to keep us apart from each other. And so the starting chute that we would normally have all squeezed a couple of hundred of us into was stretched out over like, this was the Werribee Mansion half marathon. So it had about 1,000, I think it had 800 people in total across the event. It used to get 400, 500 people running the half marathon alone. They capped the field at like 200. And the overall event was like 40% of what it used to be. And it felt a lot quieter. They said that they didn't want spectators there, so they weren't meant to be spectators. Everyone was sort of socially distancing at the start and the finish as much as possible. And it felt, I don't know. I think Australians are pretty relaxed right now in terms of the way things are going. And, you get the flare up in Perth recently, or the one I saw in New South Wales today, and we need to remain vigilant. But as a general rule, most people are sort of like, oh, okay, it's back to normal. But then you get to those events and
you go,
they can't run those events without following the procedures, because they'll get shut down and fined if they don't.
It's a reality check. And that's, it's going to be, because I was planning on doing possibly the Run Melbourne just to get a race in before I get a race in, like a warm-up race. And I'm really curious to see, because I remember the last time I did Run Melbourne, it was
chockers.
Yeah. So it'd be really
I've entered Melbourne, and Melbourne in October is normally 20,000 people across the festival with all the different races, and 8,000 in the marathon itself. So I was looking at it on the weekend going, this event is 2.5% the size of Melbourne Marathon. How are we going to do that 6 months from now if we still need to follow these protocols? And I remember Andrew and I talking about when COVID was first coming in, they said that the starting chute for the LA Marathon would have been 5 kilometers long if everyone had maintained 1.5. And that's kind of what we're heading into as these races start, which it seems silly because there was 80,000 people at Anzac Day the other day in the MCG, but we have to stand a metre and a half away from each other doing a race at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't know.
The rules throughout this whole pandemic have all seemed rather arbitrary and
except during lockdown. During lockdown, it was all very, very clear, and we all came together and argued about it. It's
still like this 5 kilometre limit. How ridiculous was that? Because then it pushed everybody together.
True.
I went down to the local bike path because that's where I was allowed to go, and you couldn't social distance for love nor money. You were rubbing shoulders with every man, woman, and child in the area.
That's a good point.
Because we were only allowed in our 5K bubble. So it was a rule made by somebody who thought it was smart until you put it into action, and then you realize it's actually not that smart. So
I think there's a lot of that during this, because I would not have wanted to have been one of those people that were coming up with these plans, because you just
you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. It's just because I must admit there were times when I was like, well, that's stupid, but then I'm like, well, what's the
what would I do?
Then? Yeah, exactly.
I do not have a workable solution to what they should have done. I'm just here criticizing what they should do.
But that's okay. That's our right.
That's
right. Did you talk about COVID a lot on your podcast over the pandemic time, or did you try and stay away from it?
I let the conversation flow naturally, and sometimes we talked about COVID simply because, like, when I was talking to people doing FKTs, it would come up. That's the reason they did it. When I spoke to authors, no, generally didn't really speak about COVID much at all because there was no need to.
Did you talk about the vapor flies at all?
No.
we got a solid 3 hours out of complaining
Oh my
about the
God.
vaporflies.
Oh,
Well,
dude.
you've got a pair, don't you, Andrew?
Yeah, well,
Yes,
I
two.
just got the newest pair.
Oh,
I
well,
just-
2 pairs. No.
and I got to tell
That's part of
you,
the problem.
Yes.
the first ones that I got, whilst fast, very uncomfortable.
Ah,
Gave me some nasty heel blisters and just
heel
really,
blisters.
yeah. And I never get those, and they're just uncomfortable. They're hard to get on, and they suck. The new ones. The only gripe that I have with those ones are the laces. The laces, for whatever reason, are jagged. So like if you're cold, if you're tying them when your hands are cold, it really sucks. But dude, they're fast. Like I went out like a couple weeks ago and I ran a 5K PB with probably 80% effort.
Really? But
Yeah.
how much did they cost?
I don't know.
Come on. You know.
They cost 4 payments on Afterpay. They were like, I think they were like $300.
Okay, which isn't horrendous, but they
It's
don't
not
last very
horrible.
long. Do
No,
they?
250 Ks.
I won't. Exactly.
250 Ks.
Yeah.
I won't wear them for anything other than like time trials and stuff. But I like them. I want to get a pair of the Alpha Flies one day.
What are they?
They're like basically they're like the next percenters and all that, but they give you an even better return apparently. Like they're the elite level shoes. Like I don't know, man. I just want to run like a 15-minute 5K.
How would they go in a Barkley, do you think? A pair of Vaporflies. How long would they last?
In what now?
In a
Oh, like-
Barkley.
Oh,
An
God.
hour?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Well, let's talk about that. So, like during the pandemic, because you had plans to return to Barkley.
Yeah, I cancelled my flight like
Yeah.
a week before, a week or two before going, like I was meant to be going.
And like, did they cancel the event? I can't remember.
They were going to just do it just Americans. They ended up having to cancel it due because of their parks shut them down they weren't to have public gatherings, and that sort of stuff. So there was no race last year, as I recall. They had a race this year, but it was all just Americans. I think a couple of Euros managed to get over.
Sure.
But probably had to quarantine on their return. So fingers crossed for next year. I mean, like I was earlier this year kind of hopeful for next year, but now it's even like.
So you definitely it's definitely still on the cards that you want to get back.
Yeah. I
to-
mean, I'm rolled over. I keep rolling over. The entry.
yeah.
I mean, you still have to re-enter to show that you're still wanting to do it.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know.
You looked at any of the local versions that are starting to spring up? Like there's a couple in
Yeah.
Australia, people doing, Barkley-inspired events.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would be good training, I guess, but I also don't like. I try to be rather judicious in my racing, because I think I don't want to over race. I don't want to do that as training and then be so ruined from it that I can't go to the real thing.
Yeah. So what do you do? So what sort of events are you entering at the moment now?
Well, I just did last week an FKT because that was something I've always wanted to do, which hence my big interest in FKTs. And I thought, well, this is the best time to do it because there's not really any races, right? So I did it because I couldn't get to Barkley earlier this year. So I did my FKT instead. And but I entered last year. I was obviously feeling very confident. I entered last man standing or last one standing in Queensland for August.
Right.
So that's the plan for August, barring border lockdowns and, outbreaks of one person with COVID. So, yeah.
Just takes one to mess it up for
I know.
bastards.
But one. Like, come on. Anyway,
man.
don't get me started.
Fair enough.
Is there anything on the cards for, like, what's your calendar look like for the rest of 2021? Is there anything
Because
big?
I like to do only 2 big events a year. I don't think
Yeah.
it's healthy to do more than 2 really big. Like I've got a 50K race at the end
What's
of
a
May.
big, yeah, because I have to say, what's a big for you? Like a
Big for
you
me
versus-
is those,
yeah.
like this FKT took me 67 hours.
Jesus
And-
Christ.
Yeah. And the last one standing, I don't know how long that will take, but it will be more than 24 hours, right? So I can't do more than 2 of those a year. I don't think it's healthy. I mean,
Yeah.
How long again was the Bright one a couple years ago? in
Oh,
October?
GSER.
Yeah.
That was 180 Ks or so. That was
Yeah, wow.
44 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
You won that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so then I did this, which was 290 Ks
Wow.
and 67 hours. So, yeah. So, you know, I think, you know, and I'll do smaller races, you know, like 50 Ks or whatever, but I don't think it's because of the sleep deprivation that's involved in that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's really hard to recover from.
I love that you call it 50K small. Or
Yeah, it's a sprint.
It's a sprint. She's
What
like
did you
done in 3 hours.
What did you think about that lady the other day who broke 3 hours for the 50K?
Des
Des
Linden.
Linden.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't really watch. I heard it was, I mean, it's awesome, but I heard it was on like, was it on it wasn't really a race, was it?
No, it was on like a bike path type
Yeah.
thing. Like
Yeah.
I don't, yeah. But I mean, the quotes from that is that she raced it. Like she didn't like just, you know, it's not like, oh, you run
You'd have
a
to.
marathon and then you try and, you know, get through to a 50.
Yes.
She raced it like she would
Well,
run a
to
marathon.
get under 3 hours,
you'd
you would
have to.
have to.
It's just incredible.
I wonder if she was wearing Nike Vaporflies.
No, I
I'll
don't
ask
think
her.
she was a tosser. Yeah.
No.
Whatever, man. I'm gonna call Eliud Kipchoge and tell him you said he's a
That's
tosser.
a good point. Yeah. I do have like 3 Eliud Kipchoge t-shirts. I really shouldn't throw stones
Such a
at him.
jerk.
What do you think, Isabel, about this whole is a 50K an ultra? I'm
Yes.
noticing a growing trend about people saying 50Ks aren't ultras now because they're becoming
Well-
so common.
Yeah, I mean, they are an ultra, but ultimately the first marathon I did was an ultra. It's because the first marathon I did was the Great Ocean Road, which at the time was like 45K, you know?
Yeah, true.
And that's considered an ultra. To me, 50K is an ultra, but basically you can do a 50K on marathon training,
Yeah.
you know? So yes, it is an ultra. I do still consider it an ultra. It is.
It's a
Yeah,
baby
it's a big accomplishment for
Yeah, it
you
is.
know,
It definitely
yeah.
is a big accomplishment. And when I'm saying I only do 2 big events a year and they're smaller, that's only because of what I do, you
Yeah.
know. But I know when I first did a 50K, like that was really hard, and it's definitely an ultra. But I am just at a different stage in my racing career, so to speak, that I'm going for the much longer things now. So, you know. That's all.
The good
it is.
confidence boost to anyone that's listening that's training for a marathon and enjoyed their marathon. That same sort of training can basically be extended to
Exactly.
a 50. Just a little bit more
Definitely.
nutrition, probably, and
Yes.
thinking a little bit more about fuel. Yeah.
And a little bit more mindset, you know, like to get through that extra bit. Now, Andrew, you've got your first 50K coming up, haven't you?
Yeah, I do. In
When's that?
October 16th. So it's just under 6 months away now, or just over 6 months.
I have
One
no
of-
clue. COVID made me lose all sense of time.
Just under
3-4
6 months.
weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a 50K, or
Yeah.
give or take. Usually give.
Yeah.
So it's a Spartan Ultra. So it's in Bright at Mystic Mountain, of course.
Oh, awesome! You're going to do that? Yep.
Yeah, which is a lot of fun because I did the Beast last. I keep saying last year.
Yeah.
It's going to be 2 years ago, because we lost a year.
That was
And
around
yeah,
the same time as I did GSER, wasn't it?
yeah, I think it was. I think it was like the week. I think it was the same weekend.
Yeah. I have a feeling.
I think so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited about that. Like, I'm really excited about that. You know, I've just started seeing Jason again.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And so, you know, we're really, because the thing about my running is cardiovascularly, I'm fine. Like, I could probably I go out and run 20. I'd probably go out and run a sub 4 hour marathon tomorrow. It's the mechanics that are stopping
So,
me.
do you do strength work?
Yeah,
You do,
yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
Do you do stuff like yoga?
I have started as of about 6 weeks ago. I started adding that back.
Because
into
there's
my
a lot
routine.
of balance in that, you know, when you're
Yeah.
doing the one-legged poses and that.
Yeah.
And I think the balance is very helpful.
I think
Doing
so
one-legged
too.
stuff, very
I
helpful.
think so too, especially in my right, because he calls it dishing. Now, I haven't found anything online about it. It's basically when one of your legs sort of, instead of going straight, it's kind of swooping out
Oh, yes.
because of some kind of crazy turn out, and as you're kicking off, as you're
Yeah.
towing off, it just sweeps out. So we're really focusing on the balance to fix that, because I think that's where that knee pain's coming from. And once we can sort of fix that, he's confident that once we fix that, we'll be good to go. And I think it's going to really, which kind of is also helping me, which I've been working on this past year too, is just slowing down my runs and just not
Yes.
trying to run everything hard.
Have you got the book 80/20 running?
I don't actually, but I know it. I do know it.
Because that's all that, 80% of your run schedule should be easy.
Yeah.
And only 20% should be in the hard. But a lot of people go out and run every run hard.
That's it. And I was telling Zach the other day, like I used to run my long runs at like better than marathon pace and wondering why I was not recovering. But now I'm
Tired
just
for
like,
3 days afterwards.
yeah, exactly. It was all ego. And it was like, oh, I can, so I should. But
Yeah.
now it's like, you know what? I don't care if Strava says that I'm running
Yes.
a 6.5, 7 minute kilometer. I really don't. I'm just going to focus on how my mechanics are working.
Yes.
Just ticking over the things, and I'll do my 2 speed workouts a week. If however that's going to change leading up to the ultra, I'm sure it will. Because I said to Zach, there's going to come a time where I stop with the speed work, probably together, and just get more endurance. I don't know. But
Well, you'll go more
it's
towards tempo runs then.
sure. Yeah, as opposed to like intervals and everything.
Yeah.
Would you recommend an obstacle race for your first 50? I mean, that's the thing that does my head in, is that he's picking his first 50 and he's going to do it as an
Yeah.
obstacle race.
Well, do you know why? Because I think
That breaks it up though.
that's exactly, because I think for me it's been such a, like, once I get past that 30-kilometer mark and the knee starts going, and granted we might be fixing this anyway with my mechanics, but
Not might, you will be. Yeah.
you will be. And I think for me, yeah, it's going to be, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I think the fact that stopping going will help, I think. Even if it just gets me past an extra 10%, I think.
And also
Which is-
because there will be an element of your brain going, oh my God, when's the knee pain going to kick in? If you have to focus on other things, you're not thinking about it as much, which means you're not focusing on it as much.
Yeah.
Which means you may not feel it as much.
That's right. And I know that there's going to be a good percentage of this thing that it's going to be walking.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, that's what's good about every ultra, to be honest.
Yes.
that's exactly what Zach said. So,
It's just, I keep telling him it's a big joke. They all wave us off at the start line and we go around the corner and we stop running and start walking. And we're like, this is easy. This is great. It's just we have to be out there for 14, 15
I know,
hours.
and you tell people, oh yeah, I just ran a 100K race. Oh wow. And you're like, yeah, but I walked half of it,
see, that's I can get behind that. And I think that's also the reason why I'm kind of turned on to the backyard ultra eventually, when I don't forget that it is that weekend. I'd like to do one of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm nervous about it, but I'm in good hands with Jason, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I know, like, he's already given me a bunch of exercises to work on, and I bought a slant board. Have you ever heard of that?
yeah.
Yeah, I have a slant board now. It's the best thing ever for
Yeah.
stretching calves. Yeah, Zach, if you've got tight calves, and this is probably great for your Achilles anyway,
Yeah.
a slant board, just look it up on eBay, like 30, 40
No,
bucks.
I'm just going to come and look at yours.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So
Yeah.
Zach, what's the furthest you've ever raced?
I did 100 Ks at a non-stop last year.
At what, sorry?
At a backyard ultra.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I did 100 Ks in a backyard ultra. So that's the longest I've gone so far. This year, I tried to go around earlier in the year and do another backyard ultra, but I just had a really bad day with fuel. I ended up bombing out after like 10 hours. But I've got, in July, I've got Yu Yang's 105 Ks. So I'll go do that. And that'll be a nice day out. And then later in October, I'm doing the Oxfam on Friday, finishing the Oxfam 100 on Saturday morning at some point, and then running Melbourne Marathon on the Sunday.
Oh.
So that's going to be a pretty big weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like it.
So
I mean, I don't, but I do. Like, that'd be horrible, but it sounds good.
my hope is that I can get through the Oxfam with the team somewhere under 20 hours and then go and do the Melbourne inside 5 hours so that I miss the having to go onto the slow track. So
yeah, because the thing will be you've had the recovery in between, but that's when your DOMs will have set in and you'll be feeling a bit crappy, and you really have to nail your nutrition after you finish the 100K.
Yeah, I can't finish the 100Ks and go crack some beers. I've got to be perfectly sort of balanced. And you can't go,
oh, I don't feel like eating. You're gonna have to suck it up, even if you don't feel like eating, and actually eat. And lots of protein.
Because a couple of years ago I did Melbourne one weekend, and then a week later I ran Toronto. And just doing two marathons back to back, it was funny how the second marathon was stuff that felt really good just really started to hurt, and I was running so much slower than I'd done the Melbourne one, like half an hour slower in terms of my overall time, but it was a completely different race. Like the Melbourne Marathon felt cruisy and easy, and it was my PB, and then doing something slower a week later felt so much harder because I was just like, I don't want to do this. I've already done one a week ago. What am I doing?
That was such a funny thing. Like nobody knew you were doing that, and then all of a sudden you're posting pictures of yourself completing the Toronto Marathon. Like, yo, guys, did you know that Zach's in Canada?
What? I just wanted to go on a day trip.
Yeah. Why the Toronto Marathon?
I got invited to go over there and speak at a conference. And so they said, do you want to come over and speak at this conference? And I'm like, oh, I guess I could do that. I mean, I get invited to do like a lot of stuff like that, depending on what sort of bit of work I'm doing. Because like partners we work with are always like, we'd like you to come talk about the projects we do with you and blah, blah. Yeah. And so they invited me and I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then I looked at it and started doing some research. And the first thing I do is Toronto running. And I noticed the marathon is on that weekend. And I'm
yes, I'll do it.
Now we're in. Okay, I'll fly over. I'll let you look after me, and then I'll stay in Toronto for a week afterwards and do this marathon. So
I like it.
Other than that, I would never have crossed my mind to do something like that.
Yeah. No, and why not? That's awesome. Good on you.
Yeah. I've still got hope. The big thing I want to do when it comes back on is, the Braveheart 777, the 7 marathons in 7 days in 7 states.
Saving all your money now.
Yeah, it's like 10 grand or something. I think it is. You have to fundraise to get into it,
and then you have to pay for all those flights and everything.
Yeah, so that's the one I'm definitely looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, I looked. And there's so many different things and. There's just not enough time or money to do them all, quite honestly.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
It is, yeah. I definitely had to, as part of this year, I looked down at one point and I'm like, because all these races got cancelled last year. Yeah. And as they got cancelled, I'm like, I'm definitely going to do that next year. And then I looked down at one point and I'm like, I'm doing 18 races this year. But that's nothing. Our friend Nicola is doing like 50 races this year.
That's nuts.
I think it's insane. She's doing a race, and she's someone who completely transformed her running during lockdown. Like she had the same thing as you. Like she almost relearned to run, and she came back as like such a better, faster, stronger runner. And she's decided to celebrate that by literally doing a race every weekend. Well, it feels like.
As you learn from doing Melbourne to Toronto, you can't do your best doing that. I mean, you can have an awesome time and you can love it and it can be brilliant, but you can't do your best racing.
No. It was Toronto was I'm going to get through this, and that's I'm very conscious that's what Melbourne's going to be like later this year. It's going to be like I'm going to do Oxfam. I'm going to have a good time with the guys and helping them get through. Some of them who have never done a distance like that, then I'll just
Does that little stint qualify you for the Marathon Maniacs at all?
If I did 100 and then 50, if I did 100 on one day and then do Marathon Maniacs a day later, yeah, absolutely. Marathon Maniacs only expect you to do 2 races and two marathons in 2 weeks. So
really? Do they consider 100K? Do they say you can say that that's a marathon?
Yeah. So if you do 2 races over a marathon distance within 2 weeks, or 3 within 90 days, I think it is, you qualify for the very entry level of Marathon Maniacs. Right. Yeah. And then it goes up from there. And the biggest level is all 50 states of America running a marathon in like this, or all 7 continents in 7 days. That's like the ultra level. Yeah.
That's great. And that hasn't been something that you've qualified for yet, has it?
Marathon Maniacs.
Yeah.
I did. I qualified when I did Melbourne and Toronto back to back.
That's right. Obviously. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember.
So
sorry.
Yeah. But they've got a whole bunch of conditions where they have to be like races of a certain level. Like you can't just go out and run 2 marathons back to back. There's got to be at least 30 people. It has to be a run director organized. There has to be published results.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of
proper marathons.
They've got to be proper marathons.
You can't just go out and do it on a Sunday run.
They got to be verified, and every person who applies, they verify it and make sure that it's actually legit.
Sure.
But it's doable. It's absolutely doable. Especially the 3 in 90 days, I think, is very doable.
Yeah, that's
doable.
Yeah.
Easy.
Interesting stuff.
Right.
And so after your 50K, Andrew, are you planning on going further and doing a longer ultra? Like 100 Ks?
I don't know. Like it's It's one of
Backyard.
those.
You'll do backyard.
I
You've
think
been
I
talking
want to
about
do.
backyard for
I think
2
I want to do
years.
the backyard ultra definitely, but it's kind of one of those things where I'll say now I don't know, but it's also one of those things like I probably will because it was always when I did my first 5K. God, I would never do a 10K. When I did my first 10K, God, I would never do anything longer than that. When I did my first marathon, let's do that again. And now, then it was like I'd never do an ultra. Oh wait, I can. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
that's kind of the way of running. It's like
Yeah.
you just keep wanting to challenge and push yourself and do something harder and more different and whatever.
it's exciting.
And then you end up running 291 Ks.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, yeah,
Some of us do.
exactly. It's just
33% of this podcast do.
yeah. It is an exciting thing, and I said this to Zach the other day that there's just something so fundamentally awesome about like just pushing yourself, seeing how far you can go, and it doesn't even matter about speed. It's just like how far you can go, or what you can do, or how often you can do it.
I used to be a cyclist, and it's completely different. Like for me, what's so good about running is you're doing it just you. Like when you're a cyclist, there's a bike involved, right? You know what I mean? Which helps you can coast down hills and rest and whatnot. Whereas with running, it's all you moving through, creating the movement and having to deal with the aches and pains and carrying all your stuff. And that's what I find, I don't know about you, but so much more fulfilling about running is it's just you. It's reliant purely on you.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Absolutely. And it's just it's an exciting thing to find that because you find it in new ways all the time. Or when you work with people like with Erin, I'm helping her find her running again and seeing somebody do that, seeing somebody find, and obviously Izzy, you're a coach, you know, you see somebody who finds that love of running and it just motivates you yourself. And so every time we run together, I'm like, this is great because it's just motivational and it's like very few things kind of do that.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, it's a great sport and we're lucky to have found it. But also I think it's also like with the podcast, because kind of that's what we were talking about. It's a great vehicle for the podcast is a great vehicle for sharing the information about running and sharing the love of running in whatever format, whether it's, Spartan style races or my FKTs, which is running with, a fair bit of hiking, to the half marathon you did at Werribee. Like it's all running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we always think that if someone can get one thing from every episode we do that helps them sort of go a step towards discovering that or rediscovering or wanting, like that's what it's worth, because we're all enjoying this thing together and we're just trying to share it and help other people realize that, hey, there's a whole community out there. We spoke about anyone can start a podcast and do it on their own, talking for the first 12 episodes to get it out. But if you can get a community going and you can learn that there's other people that share it, it makes it so much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
That's what's kept me going.
Yeah. Well, that seems like a really good place to sort of put a pin in it, do you think?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for
Absolutely.
sharing
Thanks
your thoughts.
Yeah. And thanks for, all of us getting together and having a chat. And I mean, I've just find doing the podcast has been a great learning experience, not just from the mechanical issues and technical issues involved, but, I've learned so much from the people I've interviewed. That's been, for me, the biggest bonus. So I really hope the listeners out there have learned a lot from the episodes that I've put out. And I mean, I know you guys don't do the interviews so much, but I think there's a lot to be gained from having people talking. Just that general discussion of running sometimes is just as informative, because that's when your best ideas come along often.
Absolutely. Kind of like the long run itself. That's, you're out there for hours and
you're solving the problems of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Isabel, look, congratulations again on 100 episodes plus.
Yes, and congratulations to you too as well.
Thank you very much. Well, look, everybody, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I've been Andrew.
I've been Zach.
And I've been Isabel. And if people have any ideas for a challenge that we should all do, please let us know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will link to Izzy's podcast in the show notes where you can find her, of course, where you can find the Breaking the Barrier podcast. Make sure you get on Apple Podcasts and leave a review for both of our podcasts. So
That would be awesome.
That would be great. Thanks
Alrighty.
so much, everybody. We will catch you all next time.
Bye.